Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Macon-Bibb County Committee meeting. Today is August 2nd, and the time is now 4 o'clock. We'd like to welcome everyone here to the pre-commission, acting as a committee of the whole. We'll begin this meeting. We have several items on the agenda today, including a millage rate vote. And at this time, I don't see a need to go into executive session. If that changes throughout the process, we'll have the executive session there. We do have a quorum here, and we do have Commissioner Lane Lucas that will be participating by telephone today. I'm going to begin with item 1, which is the approval of minutes, and there's a couple of meetings that we had, so we'll go through these one at a time. The first item for approval of the minutes, item A, is approval of minutes from the July 19th, 2022 meeting. Can I get a motion to approve? Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Clark. Can we get a second? Second by Commissioner Howell. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries and will be sent to consent agenda. Item B is the approval of the minutes from the public hearing for the abandonment of Cason Street that we had on last week. Can I get a motion to approve? A motion by Commissioner Wynn. Can I get a second? Second by Commissioner Bronson. Any discussion regarding that item? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries and will be sent to consent agenda. Item C is an approval of minutes from the public hearing of the renaming of a portion of Anthony Road. I get a motion to approve. Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Clark. Can we get a second? Second by that Commissioner Watkins. Commissioner Watkins. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Nay. Okay. That motion carries. That's just on the minutes, not on the actual voting on the issue. We're going to move on to 2A, which is a review of the alcohol beverage license. We have a little unique situation on this particular alcohol license, but I'll have our attorney explain to you. This is item 2A, a new alcohol beverage license for Holly Supermarket, located at 3309 Holly Road, Macon, Georgia. So we'll go ahead and hear from our attorney, and then we'll see what the pleasure of the commission will be.
Good afternoon. My name is Frank Howard, Assistant County Attorney in Macon-Bibb County. And this one is a little bit of a unique situation. The Holly Supermarket LLC at 3309 Holly Road had its application for license granted in January of this year. However, in that license application, that business represented that it was a gas station at that time, and they submitted that application in September 2021, made no amendments all the way up to the point at which the application was approved by the commission. However, a tip was received by the Code Enforcement Department on July 16th, 2022 that the business was not operating as a gas station. While it had gas pumps, the pumps were not operational, and that the business was in fact operating as a Vice Mart. Our law, Macon-Bibb County Code Sectional Ordinances, Section 4-56, provides that any business licensed on or after September 1st, 2020 cannot be licensed as a Vice Mart or switch to a Vice Mart. And so, one, the business violated that code section by operating as a Vice Mart, and two, they likely misrepresented that they were in fact a Vice Mart in violation of Macon-Bibb County Code of Ordinances Section 4-23 when they submitted their application. So on those two grounds, my recommendation is that the Macon-Bibb County Commission vote to revoke the license from Holly Supermarket LLC at the 3309 Holly Road location.
Thank you, Commissioners. You've heard the recommendation from our council to revoke this license based on the operation as a Vice Mart as opposed to a gas station. We have a motion for approval on that. Motion by approval by Commissioner Howell. We have a second by Mayor Pro Tem Clark. Any discussions or further questions for the attorney regarding this item? Seeing no discussions, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries. Thank you very much. We'll take the appropriate legal actions on that. We have got to the point about the millage rate, and I want to make sure that we're all clear on this. I do notice that Commissioner Tillman is not here at the time, nor Commissioner Jones is not present at the time. I spoke with both of them about that previously. I'm not sure if I want to have this twice, but what's the pleasure, Commissioner? You want to go ahead and move forward with this millage rate right now, or you want me to pass it and see if they arrive here shortly?
I think we ought to go ahead and do it. I don't see any.
Anybody have any objection to go ahead and move forward with it? Okay. I'll go ahead and move forward. We know we have it on the agenda for tonight if it passes as well anyway. This is an ordinance reducing the millage rate from 19.901 mills to 17.901 mills to be levied and assessed for the year 2022 upon the taxable property located at Macon-Bibb County Tax District. Mr. Tillman had asked to co-sponsor that as well myself sponsoring that. Anyone else that wants to join on that, please let Janice know. We can do that. But before we take a vote, I just want to provide some information for those that are out in the audience and those that are at home. I know sometimes the millage rate can be a little bit of a complicated concept for a lot of folks, and we want to be very clear on that, especially with what's going on in our state and the nation today with tax assessment values. Just to be clear one more time, Macon-Bibb County mayor and commissioners have absolutely nothing to do with any tax assessment that you may have received. Our job is to set the millage rate, which is actually the tax that's associated with the properties that we have. Like every county in the state, Bibb County has received some tax assessed valuations that are higher than they were before. We are in an audit year, which means they audit all 100% of our properties in Macon-Bibb County, and the time for appeals to be filed has already run, and those appeals have been handled by the tax assessors. It comes a time where our commission and body of government has to decide what the millage rate will do. As you recall, last year we were able to reduce the millage rate by about 0.4, 0.5 mills, and this year we're proposing 2 mil reduction. Also want to let you know that these tax assessed values that have increased, if this commission rolls back the taxes, Macon-Bibb County does not receive any additional funds for this property, so there's no incentive for the county for the tax assessment values to go up for pure collection of funds. That's also a hard count for people to understand. On top of that, Macon-Bibb County was fortunate to pass by an overwhelming majority of 80% the OLIS this year. And I say fortunate because all the counties around us don't have that opportunity. The counties around us wish they had the opportunity to roll their taxes back the equivalent amount of 1 penny, but they're not able to do that because they're not a consolidated government. Having said that, the bill that was passed by our local delegation and signed by the governor last July indicates the following, and we're going to be following that law to the T, that you will collect on the first year, Bibb County collects, retains any of those portions of those funds. In the second year, you'll roll it back by a minimum of 5 mills. However, Macon-Bibb County, through this resolution, has decided to roll the millage rate back, if it's approved, by 2 mills. On top of that, the previous value of a mill was just over $4.2, $4.3 million per mill. Now the value of according to the tax digest, is about 4.88 mills. So this reduction is a substantial larger reduction than you normally would get. To go along with that, you generally collect with the Department of Revenue for 1 year, you roll back the next year. If any of you will look at your property tax bill for this year, you'll see a reduction from last year of approximately 7.5, 7.6 mills. That is based on the 1 penny you paid last year that is getting to roll back this year. So that is the way it works. You collect 1 year, you roll back the next year. Therefore, we'll be rolling back the millage rate, hopefully 2 mills today. Then we'll roll the millage back that same 2 next year. On top of that will be a 5 mil rollback for a total of 7 mil rollback, but actually the equivalent of a 9 mil taxable value for those 2 years. Right now, Macon-Bibb County has a 19.9. At the end of next year, we'll have a minimal millage rate of about 12.9 mills, and it could quite honestly drop below that. So I want to make sure everyone understood that. I also want to make sure that everyone understands that we are the OLIS has allowed us the opportunity to do some other things. This board and commission previously approved an incentive package program for our public safety, allocating or appropriating up to $40 million over the next 10 years, which this allowed us to do. In recent conversations with this commission, the general consensus was that we want to triple the amount of money that we're presently putting towards roads in Macon-Bibb County, and this will allow us to do that at the same time of rolling back the millage rate for Macon-Bibb County. So that is the basic explanations for this. Because this is not a tax increase and is a millage rate rollback, this is the only hearing that we'll be having in this. It's already running in the paper, and our vote at this time and the 6 o'clock hour will conclude our millage rate reduction. If you do not pass the millage rate reduction and you miss the guideline or the deadline placed by the tax assessor's office, because he has to do this for Macon-Bibb County government as well as the school system, then you avoid some opportunities or create some opportunities that will prohibit you from doing the split bill, and you'll have to have one bill at that time, and then you have to have possibly further hearings on the matter. So at this time, we'll answer any questions that you may have regarding the millage rate rollback that we have now. If not, we'll entertain a motion in a second and move forward with a vote for the committee of the whole. I have a Commissioner Wynn.
You said that this year was an audit year, 100% properties were audited, is that right?
That's correct.
How often is that done?
I believe it's every 5 years. Well, what it is, you generally hear about 1/3 of our community every year gets audited. That means that they have to put their eyes on the property, and they don't sit behind a computer and use Google to associate that. Macon-Bibb County this is a particular audit year for Macon-Bibb County, so the entire county was looked at. Even if your property was just done last year or year before, it's one of those requirements that they have to do all. Some of our surrounding communities, they haven't had their complete audit yet, and they'll have theirs probably next year or the year after, and they'll go through the same process that we've gone up through as well.
Thank you for your explanation of this earlier, the millage rate and how that works. I think it's very confusing to our public. It's confusing to me, and I've had classes on it. But I think it would be, I think people are still not sure how this works as far as the rollback of property taxes. I guess the truth will be told when they finally get their tax bill on it.
Well,
It'd be good to have an example using
Right.
like a $100,000 house or something. Like
that's really not a good way to do that, because you have a Bibb County school system involved, and their rate's going to be different from us. But basically, the county sets our own millage rate, and that millage rate determined by the total tax digest. One way to look at it is the current rate right now is 19.9. So whatever that 1 penny represents, that's the amount that you can expect to be rolled back like we do our lost. And we anticipate the county side of the millage rate to decrease some 35% at a minimum between this year and next year because of the old lost. We can't control property values, so certainly we all know that the values across the United States has gone up tremendously. I personally feel like this is something that's not sustainable, and we'll have a situation where they actually go back as well. But we are bound by state law, and state law requires for these evaluations to be done across the community, and people have a right to appeal. I understand that less than 3% of the people appealed their evaluations this year for whatever reason, but they certainly did not appeal them. But the bottom line is we are rolling back the entire amount plus some on the millage rate, so there's absolutely no tax increase. There may be some folks that have a substantial decrease. Some evaluations may cause it where you're basically a wash this year, even with a 2 mil decrease. And in some circumstances, if you received a large increase, it's possible that your tax bill could be more, but that is not a tax increase.
I got hit by some of these folks that you said people don't understand. So I just wanted to make sure you kind of told as much as you could here for those that might be listening. The tax digest, has that been determined yet?
It has. It has. That's what this is based on. That's why we're doing it now. I will also tell you that previously, all the citizens and parcel owners in Macon-Bibb County were sent a property tax estimate. That was not a tax bill that you had to pay. What that was an estimate based on the current millage rate, which is what we had last year. That's all they had the basis by. So when they received their bill earlier this year as an estimate, like we all did, their rate showed a rate of 19.90, which is the rate that we currently have before today's vote. They will receive another bill on a split bill showing what the new amount would be if this amount was rolled back.
I think that's all they want to hear is that it's going down.
That's correct.
And that's the main thing. That's all I want to hear.
Thank you, Commissioner Wynn. I'm sorry, these names got disappeared. Is that Commissioner Watkins? Did you have a question?
Thank you, sir. As it relates to the value of the mill and the 2 mil reduction, is this a budget neutral reduction, or does it impact the amount of revenue anticipated in the FY23 budget in any way?
It will not. It wouldn't. Well, if you look at the 5-year projections that we publicize in the paper, I think it shows about $100,000 difference in there. But it's for more specific purposes, revenue neutral. We only had a 1.5 mil, I think, tax assessed value that we roll back, and we increased that amount to a 2 mil rollback. So it really does not indicate our impact on our budget, because those were estimates on our amount of monies that we had coming in. So it's pretty much revenue neutral within a small percent.
The average property went up by how much? What does that represent? I know in years past we've changed. When we do rollbacks, we'll see like less than half a mil or 0.6 maybe at its greatest before this. So just curious, the value of properties have gone up.
I'm not aware of what the total assessed values are going up. For the whole county-wide, the initial indication on residential was about 11% across the board. Some communities had 20 to 30%, but I think that's be an average for Macon-Bibb County. But I can say that the Macon-Bibb County is not receiving one additional penny for any tax assessed increase on properties that were evaluated at a higher rate just because of market conditions.
Right, that's what the rollback is.
Right. Well, that's what the 1.5 rollback would be, yes.
At 1.5?
Yeah, that was the amount of the rollback that suggested for the tax increase. We
What I was
recommended
asking
2
earlier.
mil.
So the suggested rollback amount was 1.5.
Suggested from whom?
The tax assessors, or what makes us budget neutral? I'm sorry. You mentioned 1.5 was suggested from somebody.
1.5 was the amount of the tax assessed amount that you would need to roll back to maintain the same millage rate, considering the value of the mill.
Okay.
My recommendation is in excess of that to 2 mills. So we're rolling back to 100% of that plus an additional 0.5 mills.
Okay.
Okay.
And so 0.5 mils in our budget is worth $2 million? A mill is worth 4.8-ish now, so I guess 2.4?
Yeah,
Am I thinking about that correctly?
Roughly. Yeah.
Okay.
It's about $105,000. If you look at that chart, about $105,000 actual net difference in that budget. You got to assume we do have some real growth as well, right? We've got real growth where you had a property that had no house on there, and you build a house on there, and that's real growth. So we get some appreciation for that. Or if you have a house that someone bought for $200,000 and they flipped for $400,000, well, certainly we're going to get the $400,000 because that's what they paid. That's what I call real growth, just like you would have for a business. This other growth that you have is just purely market conditions made my personal house go up $125,000 because someone nearby sold their house for more money than probably it was worth, but what the market would bear. We're not accepting any additional funds in our budget for that. The net result's only about $105,000. I don't have that schedule in front of me, but I think it's in your packages, and it's running in the paper. It's about $105,000 overall, pretty much revenue neutral for our budget of $200 million.
And I guess this question might be for Duke County Attorney. I know the state legislators, some have some different opinions on what we should be rolling back and how we should do it. That somewhat varied from, I think, what the mayor might have been conveying. Am I looking at the House Bill 661? Is that the relevant bill?
Talking about the Butte.
I guess the rules that rules of OLOS.
The OLOS bill.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
It mentions a 7 mil requirement at the end of what's the word? Coterminous year.
Right. You got
Explain
one
with that definition. Could you explain that a little bit better for me?
Yeah. So the bill that was actually passed, right, which is it's been what's called codified, but put in the Georgia Code at 48-8-97. That's the tax code.
Could you do your mic a little bit for me?
I'm sorry. The bill that was actually ultimately passed that governs the OLOS procedure, which is put in the Georgia Code at 48-8-97. That's the tax code. Provides, as the mayor said, that we start, if it was passed by the voters, which it was, so beginning in early this year, we start collecting that extra penny on the, we already had a penny under what we call the lost, and then this is the other penny. So we start collecting that money. The bill that was actually passed says that next year, which is not this year, but next year, this is the year after we start collecting that penny.
In January 2022?
Yes.
Close to that, yeah. I mean, it's not exactly January 1st, but January 2022 we start collecting. Beginning in 2023, we've got to reduce 5 mills from wherever we were in 2022 calendar year. So that's what the mayor's talking about, which is legally, whatever we are, we're right now at 19 point whatever. If you pass this, it'll be reduced to 17.8 or whatever it is. Then next year, you're going to have to come down 5 mills from that under that statute. The year after that, right, so that's next year. The year after that, you roll back only it's the normal procedure. You roll back whatever you collect. Does that answer your question?
I think so.
Okay.
And I'll yield for a moment.
Okay.
Sure, some others have some questions.
Mr. Tillman?
Yeah, and I appreciate that explanation. What I want to do is just look at a hard number of $100,000. That kind of helps all of us and the public to be able, whether the county manager, Mr. Mayor, or the attorney has that number, because that kind of puts it into perspective. If we base the 2 mills savings on $100,000 property, what are people saving? And I think that's an important number so people can probably get a better estimate. Because that's a hard number that we've used in the past to say if you got a $100,000 house and we're rolling the millage rate back 2 mills, you save X, Y, Z. And that kind of puts it in perspective to let folks know and understand. So I don't see Julie here, but that for those that understand whatever 1 mill is, and we base it on 2 mills, but we have to do whatever the 40% of a $100,000 property is. I think that helps commissioners when we go out and say what we just did, and it helps all of us. If we don't have that number, we need to have that number, because some houses, of course, are worth way more than that, but that's a little, something that we can go on. The other thing is the true explanation and understanding it. I've had a conversation with the mayor, with the attorney as well, and I think we're all, no matter how long we've been sitting up here, a lot of this stuff is still a learning process. So to be sure, because based on House Bill 661, they said we need to roll the millage rate back at 7 mills. That was I'm understanding that's part of the 5 mills. But
Wait. Go ahead.
But so what we're doing, if you look at it, I don't know if that was a timeline on House Bill 661, but in essence, what we're doing right now is proposing a 2 millage rate, 2 mill reduction, and then next year, September, by law, we've got to do 5 mills. So in essence, the taxpayers will be receiving a total of 7 mills, which, if you look at it, that's money. Yeah, property owners are going to save, but that's also money out of our budget, and that's what folks need to understand and realize. And that's what I just want to make clear, that the public understands that, yeah, everybody's just looking at their hard number, how much I'm going to save on my property tax, but this is money that's going to come out of this budget. So if y'all have that 100,000, because I haven't did it myself, like on a 2 mill, the average house of somebody that has a $100,000 house, what are they saving as far as on property tax?
I'm not going to be able to give that number to you. I'll tell you why. Is because there are some people who have elderly exceptions. There's some folks who have homestead exemptions. School system is different from Bibb County. 2 mills is whatever 2 mills is as far as the savings. But let me go back to this other question. The original bill that the House passed, if you're a part of the process, and I was as well as Mayor Pro Tem Clark, suggested a 7 mill rollback, and that rollback went over to the Senate. The Senate then did the right thing, reduced that to a 5 mil rollback with that change. It was voted on by the Senate and went back to the House, and it passed there, I think, almost unanimously for 5 mills. And thank God they did, because we'd be rolling back more money this year than we actually take in at this time, because the value of the mill has went up substantially. About $1.2 million for 2 mills has went up. So in actuality, we're required to give 0 rollback the year of collection. This is the year of collection, whether it's January 1st or July 1st. This is the year of collection, but we're giving 2 mills back. Next year, we're required by law to start at whatever the millage rate is at the end of this year and subtract 5 from that. So if you added more mills this year, then it lowers where you would start from next year, which means you'd have to get the same millage rate reduction and then another 5 on top of that, which will be more than we actually collect. On top of that, we always have to keep in mind, too, on the back end, because we're all not going to be here. On the back end, more importantly, this has a sunset provision in there for 5 years, meaning that the last year, if it does not pass for another time, the last year that you have to roll that money back, you will not be collecting any taxes on that. You roll it back the year after that, so you'll actually be having to give money back that you don't have in the account, which results in a tax increase if you drop the provision after the sunset provision. So you roll it back. This is the example I gave you earlier, is why you collect the first year and you roll it back the next year. This has been done every single year since everybody's been on this commission, including myself, and since we've had a government. And that's how DRR works. So that is the explanation. There is no 7 mil rollback. There was a 0 in the first year, a 5 in the second, and a complete in the third and thereafter, because we don't know how much is going to be collected in each year. And you basically take that total amount, you divide it by your millage rate, and that's what's on. Just like right now, every year that you get that millage rate reduction that you've been getting for the lost, it's always a slightly different amount because the sales tax amount changes slightly. So I hope I answered that question on that. If anybody else wants to volunteer that information about
and
the
just as a follow-up, so what we're looking at over the next year and a half is a strong possibility that although the taxpayers would benefit, that out of this budget, there's a possibility that we'll be taking out anywhere from $30 to $40 million out of this budget. Is that fair to say?
No, sir. No, sir. It's we will be giving back to the taxpayers that amount. Actually, if you take 2 mills this year, which is let me just round it off to 10 million. It's about 9.8 something, but just even numbers, 10 million. We don't know what the millage rate is going to be next year. So the taxpayers will still get the same 2 mil from this year, because we have to give that back because we start at the lower number. That's another $10 million. Then we give a 5 mil tax rate next year, which is the value of around 5 mills. That's $25 million.
Yeah.
You're talking about $35 million at a minimal,
Right.
Giving back.
Right.
Actually more than that.
Right.
$45 million at a minimal, giving that back. That's why it's important.
I think I used the wrong terminology,
Yeah.
but
the reason that we won't be suffering on our budget as far as giving that money away is because that's the 1 cent you take in. So it's going to be 1 cent in and then one cent back out to the taxpayers in the form of a reduction.
Right.
We're the only ones that can do that.
Well, I think I understand it. I'm clear, but it's sometimes being a commissioner, even we sometimes don't always understand it. You have to explain it, but we have to go out and explain it to the public as though we are tight and ironclad on what we are doing here. So thank you for that.
And the rough estimate, Commissioner Tillman, is around $70, give or take a few dollars on the hypothetical you gave earlier on that. I try not to use that because it's not magical for everybody. But that's just a rough estimate on there. Commissioner Jones?
Yes, sir. Couple of points. I'm all for this 2 mil reduction, and I was pleasantly surprised it's going to be that much, but I'm glad it is. I like the rounding up of it, so I'm all for it. And as the mayor has stated, what we got to realize, if we have a 2 mil increase this year, and if we had a 5 next year, then that 2 mil is still in place. So then that 7 mil decrease is in place. And there was a lot of discussion about the bill when it was being formulated. I know Commissioner Wynn and I had lunch with Representative Dickey and Representative Washburn way back when, and Washburn wanted the wanted the sunset, and I didn't see any problem with that, but the mayor made a good point on that. It actually goes a year after that. So, you know, the intent, my interpretation, my understanding of the intent is to be 100% rollback. So if we have, according to my calculations, and this could change because we've only collected through May, and Department of Revenue runs about 30 days behind. So we haven't even seen June collections thus far, but we're on target to perhaps we may be able to reduce it 8 mills. But 2 of those mills are coming now. So that's a good thing. On another related topic, if I may, Mayor, I had a couple of conversations with the tax assessor's office. So for the public's, and Commissioner Wynn and I had a discussion about this earlier today, but the Department of Revenue does a 3-year review. That's a critical review. They actually review it each and every year. And they mandate that the tax assessor's office, they have to be between 36 and 44%. Between 38 and 42%, otherwise 40%, which is what we're taxed on. So to my fellow taxpayers, understand that this is an assessment based on market sales. Your house may have not gone up for sale, as mine didn't, but other sold comparables around me have pulled that value up. So that's a double-edged sword. We like our properties to be more valuable, but they can be assessed more value. So the Department of Revenue holds the tax assessor's office. They hold them to the standard that we're going to review all of where your tax evaluations are each and every year, but every 3rd year they will do a critical review, and if you're off, you can have monetary penalties for that. So they try to make sure they're in line. So it's as I tell people in real estate, if I'm giving a broker's a price opinion on a property, it's not an exact science. And it's not an exact science for the tax assessor's office. So mine went up like most everybody else's, but I thought it was reasonable and fair. So anyway, just want to make that point. They are looked at each and every year. They do what they call a 3-year cycle review every 3 years. For the year 2022, that evaluation won't happen until 2023, and then they'll get the evaluation from the Department of Revenue, as it was explained to me, as to whether you're on the mark. That is between 38 and 42%. That 40% is right in the middle of it, which is what that's the amount we're taxed at. So, for whatever it's worth, that was my understanding.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mayor Pro Tem Clark.
Yeah, most of the questions I had have been answered in the conversation. They were mostly edification questions about really the sunset provision. I thought that needed some further explanation, which we've gotten. The Department of Revenue schedule, which Commissioner Jones just talked about, I think that factors in really strongly. But most of the questions that I wanted to ask really led up to just a single question of both the county attorney and the mayor. This legislation as passed and that is now codified, the 2 mil rollback now with the assessed 5 mil rollback next year, this is the spirit and the letter of that law. It is my understanding of it, given this whole conversation.
That is absolutely 100% correct. More than it actually was required by law, but it's something that the spirit of all the discussions that we have between this commission and the legislators who overwhelmingly supported. Not everybody got exactly what they wanted, but certainly I think the taxpayers are going to get the windfall here. So thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Clark. Commissioner, I'm sorry the names are not on here tonight. Watkins? You have another question?
Yes. Couple. And I think you clarified, and it seems like me and maybe a couple others received kind of the same notes from our colleagues at the State House. But you've clarified that the difference in the 7 mills and 5 mills is the difference between the versions that were passed in the House and the Senate. and that makes sense. I was talking to people from the House. They also had a concern, though, on, I guess, and explain it out to me, the initial year, because it seems that some under the impression that it was supposed to this would have been the time that we were supposed to do the rollback. And it seems as though you're explaining that we're currently in the initial year, and it seems to be a difference in opinion on, I guess we voted in 2021, but the collections didn't start until 2022. Am I in the right ballpark?
Right. So what the law says is the initial year is the year in which the tax is levied and collected, which is 22, and then the following year is the year that you do the five mills reduction, which will be next year.
The date that we voted on it is irrelevant because
Correct.
we didn't immediately start collecting the money.
That's right, because we couldn't collect for a period of 60 days after the vote that passed it. So it started being collected this year, and that's what triggers the initial year language.
Okay.
And I think the other misperception, I think, by some, including some legislators, is that in an odd number of years, which last year was 2021, odd number of years, the referendum is held in November. So that is the only time you could actually have the election was in November. There's a certification process, and after that certification process, we placed it on the earliest possible time we could do the collection, which would be January of this year, which is the best for Macon-Bibb County. It kind of concerns me a little bit that if any legislators were about Macon-Bibb County getting the needs to meet our community when the state has a $5 billion surplus. So I make no apologies about advocating for Macon-Bibb County to make sure that our taxpayers get the very best. And I'll also remind you that 60 to 70% of this 1 penny tax are paid by people who don't live in Macon-Bibb County, but they certainly use our roads and our services. Any other questions regarding the military?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
If I'm understanding correctly, I guess at the end of the period and being collected currently would be roughly an additional $30-ish million. I know in years past, splash proceeds and the like would go into some type of special fund. How are these funds been accounted for?
These are accounted for just like our splash funds are accounted for as far as keeping up with the amounts. They go into our general fund, and they're allocated at the appropriate time for the rollbacks above the line like they generally are every year with the loss. This is no different from the loss. We do exactly what we're doing now every single year, and we've always done this. This is just the second penny.
Well, in respect, this is the first time we've had a conversation about OLOS. Well, not conversation. This is our first OLOS as a community. I know what our loss does. I know what our SPLOS does, or how we account for those funds, and we do so differently. The loss is accounted for in our general fund. SPLOST is not. It's a special purpose in a separate fund with a separate set of rules. And I guess I'm asking for a little bit more details as we're collecting the OLOS. When we passed the budget a couple months ago, I wasn't clear. Are the OLOS funds in that budget or in our general fund FY23 budget, or is there a set-aside fund that accounts for it?
I'm pretty certain that the estimate was based on what we're going to collect this year was in that budget fund.
So it's general fund dollars?
That's correct.
Okay.
It's just like, it's no different from the loss. I know people at home may not understand what the loss is, but we already had a 1 cent sales tax, which is a LOST. This OLOS is other local option sales tax. Same exact way that they're treated, calculated. The difference here is that when we started it, the loss has been going on for years. So they'll see it on their tax bill just like we'll see every tax bill, except next year you'll see a better reduction than you did this year. So it's accounted for in the same way. As a matter of fact, we get probably about 60 days out, we get a monthly report from the previous 2 months on how much we collect on lost and OLOS. And SPLOST is for that concern. Is that it?
Yes.
Commissioner Wynn.
Yes, so just one small question. How much have we collected through May? I think you said was the last report.
I think as of May it was 12, almost $13 million, averaging around $3.2 million a year.
On track to do maybe 30 million or more.
Excuse me?
We're on track to maybe do 30 million or more this year.
Should be next. I think our budget actually included about 35, if I'm not mistaken, but Macon-Bibb County is collecting anywhere from 28 to $35 million over a period of years. We've seen an uptick recently. Turn that down, please. Thank you. Another question, Mayor Pro Tem Clark.
I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor, please.
Okay. Commissioner Jones?
Yes, sir, I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor as well, but I know you're doing those figures off the top of your head.
I am.
So I'm going to do them based on what you gave me. So we're averaging $3,245,059. So we're on track to collect $38,940,000.
Yeah. She asked through May, and 3.2 is the number I gave, but you also have to remember that we had a very good cherry blossom month. Thank goodness for cherry blossom.
Yeah.
And we typically have a lag around July and August, but the average is pretty accurate to that.
No, your memory on average at 3,245 is right on target, but 16,225,000 is
Right.
what we've collected through May.
That's all right. Any other questions? Hearing no questions, I would entertain a motion for approval of this. Commissioner Tillman, would you like to make that motion, sir? Got a motion by Commissioner Tillman. Can we get a second? Second by Commissioner Wynn. Heard her first. Any further discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously. Sent to consent agenda tonight. Item 4A is grants acceptance. This is a resolution authorizing the acceptance of COVID-19 grant funds from the Georgia Committee of Justice Children in the amount of $4,732.04 with no local match to be used for juvenile court in Macon-Bibb County to address needs stemming from COVID-19. That's my motion. Can I get a second? Second by Commissioner Tillman. Any questions regarding that item? Hearing no questions, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries and will be sent to consent agenda. Item B is a resolution authorizing the acceptance of discretionary grant from the Peyton Anderson Foundation in the amount of $10,000 with no local match to be used by the Bibb County Sheriff's Office to assist in working with homeless persons in downtown Macon area and surrounding areas. This is the $10,000 that Peyton Anderson gives the sheriff to reunite folks that are in our community and are needing to go back home to reunite with their families outside of Macon-Bibb County, and they basically purchase a bus ticket for them, and the sheriff takes care of all that. We're just a pass-through on that. So can I get a motion for approval? A motion by Commissioner Jones. Can we get a second? Second by Commissioner Bronson. Any questions? Commissioner Wynn?
Yeah, I'm glad you just made that comment because I was wondering what the 10,000 was going to be used for, and I was going to suggest transportation costs back home.
I made that explanation just because of the look in your eye.
I know.
Commissioner Watkins, you have a question, sir?
No, I've been involved some years past, and I know I've heard our body accused, like New York City and Atlanta, of transporting people to Macon, giving them bus passes and transporting them to Macon. And I'm wondering, is it like well-intentioned grants like this is how that type of rumor got started? Because I could see how Dublin or wherever we end up sending these folks could end up with the same, irresponsible opinion of what our program is.
I don't think that's it. I think it's well-intentioned. Also, what I hear rumors about is people who actually transport people here to get them out of their communities and not have any relationship absolutely at all with Macon-Bibb County. I can personally attest to this as well as some other folks on here that when we did the when we did the Greyhound bus station day over there, several of the people there were traveling through Macon-Bibb County, got stuck here in Macon-Bibb County and had family members in Valdosta and other places. And the sheriff's office actually went through a process to make sure that they had family members where they were going, and we provided them services and gift bags and things like that to help them along their way, but also a bus ticket. I do hear that from time to time, and I know for a fact that Macon-Bibb County sometimes have people that send folks to here to get them out of their community with no contacts at all with here. But I can safely say that at least as my relationship with the sheriff and them spending that money, they verify and make sure that people have contact somewhere else before they purchase that ticket, and they go down there with them to the bus station to take care of that with these funds. Commissioner Wynn?
Yeah, just one more little question or comment. Peyton Anderson Foundation gave us $10,000 about a year or two ago. I think for similar reasons they gave it to the sheriff's department. Is that what they're going to use it for? Or are there any other reasons they're going to use it? And
I think that grant was specifically written for that purpose, and they've exhausted those funds pretty much based on our recent activity, and I think they're getting some additional funds.
If we offer to transport people back to, say, the community they came from or where some family members are, do they usually accept it, or do they have to accept that?
It's a case by case. They don't have to accept it, of course. certainly we want people to be reunited from their families, and some of them are just traveling across and don't have a way to get there, but they stop by Macon-Bibb County because we're right on the river and right on the interstate.
I'm just curious because I know we had a while back, a few months back, I don't think it was $10,000 for transportation cost of our homeless. It was given to EOC, I think. I don't know what it's.
That's different.
I know that's different. I know
Yeah.
that's different, but I just wondered what happened to that money and what it was used for. I'd like to know that.
Well, you talk to EOC, but I can tell you just in general terms, that's transferring to and from medical treatment typically.
From where? From
wherever they're at.
Spring Street Bridge? I mean,
Commissioner Wynn, that's out of line. It's wherever they're at.
Well, that's where you find the homeless.
Wherever
Mr.
they
Mayor.
happen to be at that time. We have many at Brookdale.
I realize that, but do we pick up people? I would like to know how that money was spent.
Okay.
It's
I'll be
a
happy to
small
hook you
amount.
up with the EOC on that particular issue because I'm
Thank you.
not addressing that now. We do have a motion and second. If there's no further questions regarding this item, we'll go ahead and take a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries and be sent to consent agenda. Item C is a resolution authorizing acceptance of grant from the Georgia Secretary of State, amount of $38,224.20 to reimburse Macon-Bibb County for postage costs associated with the mailing of voters' precinct cards. That's my motion. Can I get a second? Second by Commissioner Bronson. Any questions? Hearing no questions, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries and will be sent to consent agenda. Item 5 is a call for special election. It's item 5A is a resolution requesting the Macon-Bibb County Board of Elections issue a call for special election to be held on November the 8th, 2022 to fill the balance of the unexpired term of office for the vacant District 2 seat, Macon Water Authority Board, to set qualifying fees, etc. Commissioner Tillman wanted to sponsor that motion. Would you like to make that, sir? Got a motion by Commissioner Tillman. Can we get a second? Second by Commissioner Wynn. And we have a question from Commissioner Howell. Okay. Commissioner Wynn would like to be added as a sponsor. Commissioner Howell?
I'm curious, how much does this election going to cost the taxpayers of Bibb County?
Zero.
Zero.
Yes, sir. Yeah,
How do we have a?
We already have a governor's election that same day, so we put this in line to make sure it's going to be on the same ballot, so there's no additional cost.
So since it's the same day, there's
Yes,
there's no expected additional cost to the.
No,
thing?
sir. If there is a runoff or some situation there's a runoff, there would be additional costs, and we'll be talking to that particular department about that. But since this is a special election in name only, but it's not a special date, we're handling that because we got it on this calendar here and a sufficient amount of time to do the qualifying on August the 8th through the 10th. Therefore, to be on the regularly scheduled November election this year, so it's not going to cost us any additional money, thank goodness.
And the other question I have, the reason that this election is coming up is because someone resigned. Is that person eligible to run again for a position that he vacated by law?
I'm not the lawyer representing anyone, but my answer as a lawyer, if I were one, would be yes.
Well, I was looking at the county attorney over there was nodding his head. So.
I heard he was in my ear. Yes, sir, yes. He is eligible, as if anybody that meets the qualifications. But so August the 8th through the 10th, if anybody would like to qualify for those positions, you're certainly welcome to do so through our normal process. And the election will be held with early voting starting sometime about a month before that. Those times will be published, and then November the 8th will be the election. Yes, sir. Do you have a question, Commissioner Tillman?
And I'm not sure. I think it's a law is required. I think after a seat is vacant, by law, somebody could call for a special election within 60 days. Is that right, Duke? Mr. Attorney? I think is it within 60 days, and I think because this falls within that time frame, that's why it's not going to cost an additional money. And that's why we need to go ahead and do it now.
That's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Wynn, do you have a follow-up?
My light's just still on.
Okay. All right, we do have a motion and second, I believe. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries. Will be sent to consent agenda. Items 6, A, B, and C. I'm going to ask Attorney McNeil to come give you a brief explanation on all three of these, and we can vote on those one at a time. Just want to let you know that each of these particular pension boards have their own board. They went through this process, and this is they're in favor of these changes that need to be made. And I'll ask Attorney McNeil to give you a brief synopsis of each one of those, and we'll take the appropriate vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So Starting with the county, Macon-Bibb County pension plan. As y'all know, we have 3 pension plans. The county pension plan is the people that worked for Bibb County government prior to consolidation, and then all the people that joined the consolidated government between January of 2014 and July of 2019. That plan, as well as the other 2, were all audited by our internal auditor a couple of years ago, and as part of her audit, she recommended some language amendments to clear up sections that she felt were ambiguous. And we presented draft amendments to address those ambiguities to the 3 pension boards. Also, there was an act that was passed by Congress, I want to say in 2019 or 2020, called the Secure Act, which had some terms that have to be implemented into our pension plan documents. And so these implement the Secure Act policy as well. And then there are a couple of minor substantive changes to the plans, and so I'll go through that as well. So on the Macon-Bibb County pension plan, most of what you'll see, if you look at Exhibit A to the ordinance that's on here, there is a red line that shows all the language that's being changed. Almost everything that you see is just clarifying those terms that our auditor felt were ambiguous, and the corrected language clarifying the intention of the rule that's in the plan has been presented to the board, and the board recommends the approval of this document as amended. The one substantive change in the Macon-Bibb County plan is on the very first page of Exhibit A. In 2018, there was an experience study that was done that recommended updating the mortality table used in the plan from a 1994 mortality table to a 2000 mortality table. And that was adopted by the board in 2018, but was just never reflected into the plan language. And so that is added into here. The Secure Act terms generally, and this is true for all 3 of these plans, require that when an employee retires, they cannot delay their pension distributions beyond age 72. And so if you retire before you're 72, you have to come back to the county and apply for your pension. If, say you worked in your 40s and 50s and then you left, you have to come back and apply for your pension to start. Well, even if they don't do that, we have to start distributing at age 72. If you're still working for the county, you can work until however old when you retire. But if you're older than 72 when you retire, you're not allowed to delay your pension benefit withdrawals. And so that's the Secure Act term. That's in all 3 of these plans. There was a request made by the Recreation Department, had some retirees that approached the department that took the early out that was offered in 2015. In 2015, this commission approved an early retirement incentive program that allowed people to retire with enhanced benefits at that time as a way of reducing the county's budget. As part of the separation process, most, if not all, of those retirees were asked to sign a document saying that they would not reapply for employment with the county ever again. But that is not, that's not an IRS rule for pensions. That's not a requirement. And so some of those folks have offered to come back into positions that would help the county address staffing shortages. And so the administration has asked language to be put into the 3 plans that say anyone that did sign something saying they would never come back as part of the early retirement in 2015, we're going to waive that restriction and you're welcome to reapply if you want to. The pension plans are closed, so they would not accrue any new pension benefits. They wouldn't be able to get any more pension, but they would be able to work for us if they desire to. The last thing that I want to mention, and this is true for all 3 of these as well, the changes that are in these proposed plans would take effect October 1st. And because the pension plan documents are codified in our charter, these are technically charter changes, and so they have to be passed in 2 consecutive regular meetings of the commission under the Home Rule Act in order for this to take effect. And so this is on for right now for the committee meeting. It'll be on again at the 6 o'clock meeting if the committee passes it. And then if it passes at the 6 o'clock meeting, it'll come back on the meeting for August 16th for the second passage. And that's what makes it final, and then it'll take effect October 1st. So that's the summary of the county pension plan, Mr. Mayor. I can go through the other two, or I can stop right now and answer questions.
Anyone have any questions regarding item 6A? Mayor Pro Tem Clark?
Out of curiosity, does it take a simple majority or 6 votes to change the charter?
It's still just 5 votes, but it has to have passed twice, 2 consecutive meetings.
Thank you. You have different changes to items B and C?
There are some small substantive changes for the other 2, but most of what I covered is the same for the other 2.
Okay. I know that Commissioner Bronson, Commissioner Wynn, and Commissioner Wild are all on those boards. I assume that you supported these measures, and I wouldn't mind if we take these in blank all together in block, if y'all don't mind. Anybody have a problem doing that? So this time I entertain a motion for items 6A, 6B, and 6C. A motion by Commissioner Bronson. We have a second. Second by Commissioner Wilder. Any discussion regarding those items? I'm sorry.
Can I just cover the substantive changes for the
Sure,
other 2
sure.
plans? Okay. So on B, which is the Division A board, these are the non-public safety employees of the former city that were hired prior to 2014. We have the clarifications from the auditor. We have the Secure Act implementation that I covered already, the reemployment of early out retirees. The only substantive change in Division A board is there's a provision that's currently in the plan that says that if you are a vested employee under the age of 55 and you die before you retire while you're still an active employee, there are no death benefits that are payable. The Division A board recommended that we change the plan to specify that any named beneficiary, whether it's your spouse or a child, gets 5 years of retirement payments as a death benefit, which is the same as other people get under the plan that are over 55 or that are married. But if you're just unmarried and you're under 55, right now there's no death benefit in the plan. So that's the one change they asked for Division A. And then in the fire and police pension plan, again, the language clarifications are there, the Secure Act terms, the early out reemployment, and then they made 2 minor substantive changes that they recommend. The first one is currently employees that took a normal retirement but did not take a normal retirement as part of the early incentive program in 2015. People that retired with more than 25 years of service other than in 2015, they get currently a $100 a month supplement to pay for health insurance costs. The people that took the early retirement in 2015, that's a $200 a month supplement. Because of rising costs in health insurance, the board recommended that just made a flat $200 for all normal retirees. So these are firefighters and City of Macon police retirees that served at least 25 years, increasing their supplement for health insurance costs from $100 a month to $200 a month. And then there's also a widow's benefit that is included in the fire and police pension plan that says whatever the retiree makes for their retirement payment, when they die, their spouse, their surviving spouse, automatically gets half of that retirement benefit for the rest of their life. But there's a minimum in the pension language that it's a $500 a month minimum. The recommendation from the pension board is to increase that minimum from $500 a month to $750 a month. Most of the people that have retired in recent years are earning well over double that. So even when they do pass away, their widows making half would still be over the $750. But there's a handful, 10 or 15 widows of people that retired years ago that would have an increase because of that. And so those are the 2 substantive changes for the Fire and Police Board. Mr. Mayor, that concludes my remarks unless anyone has any questions.
Thank you, Attorney McNeil. We do have a motion and second. Commissioner Wynn, you have something to add?
Just want to be added as a co-sponsor on all 3, please.
We'll have both of you, Commissioner Wilder and Commissioner Bronson, for sure. Okay, we have a motion and second. All those in favor of the motions, please say aye. Opposed, nay. Those motions carry unanimously. We sent the consent agenda. Next item is item A. This is something I believe that this commission has voted on as a body in previous years of 2010, 2017. This is a renewal of a previous resolution. This is a resolution of Macon-Bibb County renewed participation in the Residential Project Incentive Program, formerly known as the Heartbeat Incentive Program, whereby proposed mixed-use developments in the urban redevelopment area may be granted the benefit of reduced or eliminated property taxes according to the applicable savings schedule through the use of pre-approved pilot in lieu of taxes, we call pilot, transactions administered by the Macon-Bibb County Urban Development Authority. That's a lot to say, but I'm going to go ahead and make that motion. Let someone second. If we have any questions, I'll have Mr. Morrison answer those for you. Do we have a second? Second by Mayor Pro Tem Clark. We have a motion and second. Are there any questions regarding this renewal? Hearing no questions, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. I'm sorry, Commissioner Watkins, do you have something before we vote?
Mr. Morrison here, a brief or a more detailed description of what the project was.
You want to earn his pay? Mr. Morrison, get up here and tell us what you're here for, sir. Mr. Watkins didn't want you to stay here just for nothing.
Hey, I'm here. Yeah, so this is the program that has been in place for about a decade now, which allows for residential projects in the urban redevelopment plan area of Macon-Bibb County to be eligible for a reduction in their taxes as an incentive to actually do the project. The larger scale, denser residential developments in the inner core neighborhoods of Macon, whether it be downtown or areas in the former city and some in the contiguous area outside, if they're not like a big garden style apartment that can get financing, they need a little assistance. Particularly we want these to be in neighborhoods where it's been difficult to get new residences over time, which is why it's in the urban redevelopment plan area. The program allows for the developer who produces more than 10 units in a single development to have a 10-year tax abatement, and this resolution actually includes an additional schedule of a 20-year abatement for larger projects. The key factor that's different this time, however, is that the program no longer drives the taxable value of any project to zero. For both the 10 and 20-year schedules, the pre-improvement value will be taxable for the entirety of the project, meaning that in participation in this program will mean that the taxing authorities of Macon and Bibb County, meaning us and the school board, will continue to receive the same amount until the escalating factor increases, and then it will be assessed on the full improvement value of the project. The reason for the larger project is in talking with developers and looking at the economic conditions that are forecasted, that we're going to need to produce larger developments that are not only over 10 units, but large in value. And in order to meet the demands that are needed for developments in Macon and Bibb County, but also accounting for increases in construction costs, land values, and everything else, there's going to need to be an additional incentive there. But the key there is that they are still going to pay the full freight of taxes that they're paying now, and will pay significantly more over time. So it's an investment now to make sure that we're increasing value. And of course, as we've talked about, in a world where we are shifting more of an emphasis onto sales tax collection, increasing these sorts of residential development is going to be crucial to our overall economic growth in the community.
Thank you, Mr. Morrison. Mr. Watkins, do you have any questions for him?
Yeah. So
Okay.
I got a couple questions, but I want to make sure, paraphrase you, just make sure I got it in my head. So if a developer, so the urban redevelopment area, if I'm remembering correctly, is basically the old city of Macon?
Was originally roughly 2/3, and then the Middle Georgia Regional Commission changed it in 2019 to include a few more areas.
Okay. But a good chunk of our county, particularly all of the inner city, is in the urban redevelopment area. I know oftentimes when we see you, we think just downtown, but that's the central business district. This is the greater. And projects that could benefit from this would be stuff that's a housing complex that is more than 10 units. and the benefits that they receive are, make that clear for me.
So the only benefit that is received through this program is that they would have a altered tax schedule, where if it's a project less than $12 million and produces 12 or 10 or more units, they would have a 10-year schedule where they are taxed at just the pre-improvement value for the first 5 years. Then starting in year 6, they start paying a fraction of the full improvement value. So it goes from 0 on the improvement to 100% in year 11 from year 6 through 11. On the larger projects, it would ramp up from year 10 through year 20, basically at 20% in 2-year chunks. So the idea there is that it produces more taxable value on the back end of the project. It allows the projects to, 1, get built, and 2, get stabilized before they see a dramatic increase in the taxable value, which encourages people to do developments in areas where the market conditions might not otherwise be favorable. So, like an example, like a lot of the larger garden-style apartments that you see that crop up that are 200, 300 units, they wouldn't be eligible for this program nor need this program. But a 15-unit development in Pleasant Hill or in South Macon would be eligible for this program and would greatly benefit from this to improve those market conditions.
And I'm assuming you have an application online that's easy to find for developers?
Yeah, it's listed on the information about it is listed on the urban development page, and it's linked to the Macon-Bibb County page.
And I'm right to say this isn't a new program, so we have a couple dozen beneficiaries in the community now?
We've had a handful, yes. Largely, we've had 3 successful applicants. Several folks who have gotten the application, filed it, and then not gone through with the project. But it's
still, because the developer still needs to have the full project, bank, everything else. But in the end, if you are successful, you wouldn't need to pay as much tax. So another thing, me and Attorney McNeil were brainstorming a little while ago, not directly related to this, but just curious on your thoughts. One of the things that we've been dealing with in our county is rent prices from lease to lease jumping considerably. We are preempted by state law from having like a formal rent control law, but my understanding with something like this, where they're signing a contract that a stipulation of being in the Heartbeat Residential Project Incentive Program be some form of, or would you be accepting of some form of rent control language to in between lease to lease, that it wouldn't increase more than 10%, something along those lines? Or
assuming the developers would agree to it, and that's something that the applicable boards would want, I would see no issue in having like some affordability provisions as long as they're in the program. No, I wouldn't see any issue with that. Okay. But again, that would have to be through contract, not through law.
Thank you. Not going to make any proposals at this time, but in the near future, very well may be working down those paths. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Commissioner. I know the school system's already previously approved this as well this year. So, Commissioner Wynn?
Yes, Alex, thank you for being here. Do want to make you work for your money, but just a couple of things to ask, because Commissioner Watkins was asking about, these are not owner-occupied properties. These are developer-owned properties?
Correct. In order to be eligible for this incentive, it would have to be a rental project.
Okay.
Because you cannot twice inure a benefit. So if the owner changed during the length of this pilot agreement, the pilot would be null and void, and the property would be fully taxable.
Are there owner occupants that can apply for this? Is there such a thing?
Not for this program, no.
It has to be rental property.
Yeah, because you would have to have at least 10 units to be eligible as kind of the first hurdle.
And when you talk about the area that this would affect, would this be areas like in Sub-South or even Village Green in South Macon and places like that?
I know specifically that the Village Green neighborhood is in, as well as what we would typically call South Macon. Sub-South Bibb County, I'd have to look at them. I haven't seen it recently, but I do not think it is part of that area.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Wynn. Commissioner Bronson?
When I heard South Macon, my ears perked up. Like Houston Avenue can definitely benefit from this. In regards to that, right? So we're trying to develop South Macon, and then of course the MLK Small Business District. So in saying it, just to kind of clarify, so if we're looking at the South, if we're looking at the MLK Small Business District, would this particular program be able to help us assist with? I'm sorry, would it be able to assist us in getting that development taking place, i.e. Having residential, probably a 4-story where you have residential on the top and then of course retail at the bottom? Would that kind of fall in line with this deal, just to clarify?
I don't think I could describe a better project.
It's good to me.
Thank you, Mr. Bronson. Mr. Tillman?
Just quickly, Alex Morris, if you'll clear this up, and this is not just people, I think people need to understand, and commissioners too, and the public, that Alex Morrison and the UDA is not out here doing projects. Developers have to show up and want to do a project. And so when people say, oh, this area, we need to do something in this area, go out and get a developer. And they have to be interested in the project. Because oftentimes people hear, oh, we got money to do this, and they say, oh, we need to come over here. And so I'm saying that there are developers out there. There are some unknown developers that don't know that money exists. So find a developer, and that's how it works. And so for the public that's out there, if you're a developer, if you're interested, in a certain area, in a commissioned area, get with that commissioner and become a developer. But don't call me and say, hey, I heard you got money over here, and y'all need to come over here. It doesn't work that way. Developers are just what that is, somebody that's going out and develop the area, and we're going to assist you in that process. Do I have that correct, sir?
That is correct. Yeah, we aren't in the business of building new developments. We are there to support developers and work within market conditions to return the best value to Macon and Bibb County.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. We do have a motion and a second. There's no further. You got another question? Commissioner, go ahead.
Just one brief question, Alex. You said a few people applied for it, but kind of didn't go through the whole process. Is it a difficult process?
I mean, the way those projects that haven't been successful, the projects just didn't go forward at all. Usually because of other conditions, not the pilot program. Whether they decided not to do the project at all because of bank financing, ownership changes, things like that. The ones that we've had, having to go back over the years, 4 developers who just ultimately just didn't do the project. We only had one who just said, this puts the government in my project and I don't want that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wynn. We do have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries. Will be sent to consent agenda. Item 8A is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with United Technology Systems, DBA Solutions Z, in the total amount of $186,249.93 for renovations, audio-visual systems, and commission chambers, Macon-Bibb County Government Center, also known as City Hall. As you recall, we've been supplementing the budget and adding money for this. We finally sent everything out to get evaluated, and this particular company was selected to do the work in here. So I'd like to make that motion. Can we get a second? Second by Commissioner Hall. I heard you. Any discussions? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries and will be sent to consent agenda. Item B is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a contract addendum with Chorus Group, DBA Chorus 360, in the total amount of $324,000 for cloud hosting and disaster recovery services for the AZ400 and mainframe computer systems to be paid from the IT budget, legacy systems, repairs and maintenance, software, license, and maintenance line item. That is my motion. Can I get a second? Second by Commissioner Howell. Any questions regarding this item? Hearing no questions, all those in favor of the item, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries and will be sent to consent agenda. Item C is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement of extension with the Houston County Board of Health WIC program for the lease of office space located at 456 Oglethorpe Street in an amount of $21,215 for a one-year lease. That's my motion. Can I get a second? Second by Commissioner Bronson. Any questions? Seeing no questions, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries and will be sent to consent agenda. Item D is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a contract amendment with Cone, Inc. in an amount of $17,940 to be paid monthly for the installation, activation, and maintenance of elevator cellular dialing system. Right now, we have those elevators that are hardwired. This will make it a better process with it being done in a different manner that's going to cost us amount, and we put this out for a bid, and this is the lowest bidder we have. We have any, first of all, let me get a motion in a second. Anybody like to make a motion for approval? Okay, for wireless. Got a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Clark. Can we get a second? Second by Commissioner Bronson. I have a question by Commissioner Wynn.
Again, what the elevator cellular dialing system is
You
it
get
really?
stuck in there, and now you got to call somebody to help you out.
Okay, not used. Oh well, we want that to be done, right? Okay.
We can take them out if you want to.
Yes, Commissioner. Currently, our elevators use an analog phone dialing system, and so switching over to the cellular dialing will save a fair bit of money and make it a more stable calling platform. So it'll be easier for our phones to connect if there's some sort of an issue.
So this is a savings to us.
It is. I was unable to get the full numbers of what we're paying on our phone bill for the elevator systems currently. However, each elevator under this contract will be $65 per month, which is a reduction in their usual price from, I believe, their usual $125 per month. So we've got our government discount for Commissioner Bronson this time.
Well, good.
I gotcha.
Anything that's less costly and safer for us is good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wynn. We have Commissioner Watkins.
I assume it's for all the elevators.
For all 23 elevators that Macon-Bibb County is currently responsible for. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Watkins. We do have a motion. I'm sorry, Commissioner Jones.
So what's the length of the contract?
This contract is currently for a period of 3 years, and then it will be up for renewal. Our elevators are currently maintained system-wide by Kone Inc., and so we've renewed that, I believe, twice, and this is just adding services onto our normal contract with them. So this should go for a renewal, I believe, next year, either 2023 or 2024.
So we're purchasing the service, we're not leasing it.
It's a monthly service.
They are installing their equipment on our elevators. We are not specifically paying for the equipment installation. It's just payments for the services.
Contract, just curious.
Contract price for 3 years is, I don't recall off the top of my head, and I'm afraid I'm not that good at math.
It is $17,940 a month.
To be paid monthly, that $17,940 is a total yearly cost. It's broken down into our monthly invoice.
Okay, you scared me when I was thinking it was a monthly cost. Okay.
Commissioner Watkins.
I think me and Commissioner Jones were having the same math problem. So it's 17 divided by 12 divided by 3, not 17 times 12 times 3.
That's correct.
All right. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. That's much better.
I just did some brief math. It should be $1,495 per month. And so this will be paid out of the departments who are responsible for that elevator's budget. So that's why we don't have a specific department that it is paid from. Finance has been taking care of that.
Thank you. We do have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries and will be sent to consent agenda. Item 9, A and B and C are dealing with the local option sales tax. Item 9A is an ordinance to authorize the appropriation of two $2.631,212 from the SPLOST, that's $2.6 million proceeds. 2020 roads and bridges electric bus line item for the payment of costs related to Macon Transit Authority's acquisition of electric buses. That's my motion. Can I get a second? Second by Mayor Pro Tem Clark. Questions from commissioners? Hear no questions. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries and will be sent to consent agenda. Item B is the ordinance to authorize the appropriation of up to $1,922,839 from the 2018 SPLOST proceeds 2022 Parks and Recreation Cliffview Lake line item for the payment and costs related to acquisition of property and improvements of Cliffview Lake. As you recall, we discussed this previously. This is something specifically written into the 2018 SPLOST and is mandated by law to complete, and we're going ahead and start that process now. So we're asking for you to appropriate these funds, and then you'll see I think, an adjustment in the timeline as well coming up next. So can we get a motion for approval on this item? Commissioner Bronson would like to approve that. Can we get a second? Second by Mayor Pro Tem Clark. Any questions regarding this item? Commissioner Watkins.
I'm assuming we don't have it now, but at some time in the future, when will we be provided with a better scope of what the project will be? Like, I guess I'm curious on. I know roughly some months ago you showed us the area, but I guess whether or not is the 1.9 all for nature rehab, dredging of a lake, or will there be a built building or some type of, I guess, cultural zone or facility added to this? I haven't been clear on that yet.
Yeah, we'll be doing a site visit out there together as a group prior to spending any substantial money. Right now, we have someone scheduled to do a design of the land and the layout. We're going to take the site visit out there with commissioners to kind of show you the lay of the land to get suggestions from you. As you know, we bought, commission authorized the purchase of 4 acres and a home right there at the edge of this property, and we have some outstanding negotiations on a property nearby. We'd like to complete those before putting together the rest of the plan, but certainly the commission will have input in that program and some other building activities that we've discussed around there.
Okay, so we'll approve the money today, and in the future we'll go out and develop the plan to be the...
Well, the commission will have input in developing the plan, but we want you to see what we discussed further before we get too far in the process to see what you want out there. Right now it's more of a passive park because of the layout of the property. We've clear cut around, like I say, we've cleared a pathway to the lake there. And we purchased some property there that we believe would be the entrance with a possible pavilion and other things there. But the park itself is going to be a passive park, but it does have fish in the pond, and it's in a good location. Yes, sir, go ahead. As
it relates to this 1.9, I should understand this to be this is enough to develop a passive park. So no rec facility or building, but
we anticipate the 1.9 to cover. Purchasing the properties around that we discussed, as well as making improvements to that property and the curtilage on the ingress and egress of that property. And any park benches, pavilions, any of that stuff in the middle of that.
So at the end of the 1.9, do we have a completed park that's ready and ready to be used by the community, or is that phase 1?
No, sir, that is it. It is ready to operate.
Or be ready to operate at the end of 1.9?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We had hoped to do a site visit next week, but we have a congressional luncheon next week, so we may not be able to do it then. But we'll get with your schedules to see if we can do that very soon before we get too far in the process. But we certainly want to get that underway this year, and it shouldn't take entirely too long to complete the project. So we do have a motion and a second, right? Have a motion and a second. Commissioner Wynn, do you have a question? I'm sorry.
Yeah. I know this was approved in the SPLOST, and I know that we've got to use that money for this purpose, but it was the specific amount of $1,922,839. Is that the amount that was specifically allotted for this?
That is correct.
It's an odd number. After our meeting where this came up, I went out there to try to find this area. Of course, you can't see the pond or the lake or whatever it is.
You'll be able to see it when we walk through those woods. I'll show you.
Sure.
It's a pretty substantial pond. Yes, it is.
It just seems like an odd location for that amount of money to be spent on this project. I just have to make that as a comment. I know it has to be spent. I know it has to be done, but it's just a strange place. I don't know who put this in the SPLOST list of things to do, but Maybe
Well,
they had a
I
reason.
think not only did anyone put it there, Commissioner Watkins is over
You
there.
did.
Over 70% of the people in Macon-Bibb County voted for it, and it's going to be done. So
I know,
certainly,
like I said, I know it's going to be done.
I can promise it's going to be a worthwhile project in that area. I think it's going to substantially elevate those neighborhoods, and I think you'll see some building there that we desperately need to support the Bruce School in the area. So I'm looking forward to doing it.
It's pretty off the beaten track is what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
You know that. You've been out there.
Yeah, but I also know that you can't do very much with 1.9 million, so I wish it was a little more. But I think we're going to be able to be very efficient with our dollars there to make it work. So we have a motion and a second. No further questions. Commissioner Walker, you have a question? Go ahead, sir.
Poking the bear a little bit.
You good?
Yeah, I mean, we included this. I mean, you're correct. I think members are correct to note that there's little activity on that side of the train tracks when it comes to government services, when it comes to, again, the provision of just outdoor areas for citizens. While you're correct, there are no parks, libraries. Shoot, they closed the churches over there. Chicken got closed down. We've closed down a couple of gas stations in the past month, but it leaves very few places for citizens to congregate. It leaves very few places for organizations to organize and provide services. So the addition of a park over there was contemplated in the SPLOST when we were talking about making sure that all areas of town receive some type of new service, like Sub-South received a completely new recreation center built from the ground up. This right here is reviving an area, Cliffview Lake, that at some point, well, it's already owned by the county. It just went into neglect, I guess, 20, 30 years ago of members, I guess, before us decided not to invest in it anymore. So this SPLOST is trying to get that area back active so folks have something to do, whether it be recreational or not. That's why I was asking about whether or not we were adding a building or something like that, like a basketball court or a tennis court is common in like a lot of communities, but for some reason on Houston Avenue, you just don't have those service provisions. So we very appreciative to the body and the mayor for bringing this to the forefront to get it done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Watkins. Commissioner Wynn?
I'm not going to do a back and forth with Commissioner Watkins, but, you know, I think this area was where a lot of my friends grew up, and I never knew about this lake. So, yeah, it would be nice to have some use out of it. It seems like it's a fairly sizable one. And, yes, a thorn in my side, District 1 doesn't have a park in it either. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, Commissioner Wynn. I think we all can look forward to a great day on Houston Avenue when we get this completed, and I'm sure we can get 100% buy-in of the commissioners. So you'll be impressed with the area, and it is a hidden gem in that area. And I think along with the building program that we plan to get forward working on this next year, you'll see some good things over there. So we got a motion and a second. If no further questions, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries. Will be sent to consent agenda. Item C is a related item, which is a resolution to approve the 35th Amendment to the 2018 SPLOST project timeline in budget as presented by the SPLOST project manager. This is just moving it up in the timeline. That's my motion. Can I get a second? Second by Commissioner Howell, I heard. We have a motion and a second. Any further questions regarding the timeline? Hearing no questions, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries. Will be sent to consent agenda. Item 10 is a settlement we discussed about before. You're well familiar with the facts of that, so I won't go into any detail, but this is an ordinance authorizing a settlement in the total amount of $150,000 for any and all claims, demands, or damages against the Macon-Bibb County Sheriff's Office arising out of one anyway connected with Edna Calloway versus Tatro Gray. I hope I got that right. Sheriff David Davis and John Doe, Inc., appropriating $150,000 from the general fund balance to provide funds for the payment settlement agreement. That is my motion. Can I get a second? Second by Commissioner Howell. Any questions? Hearing no questions, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. Thank you very much. Time is now 5:30. We're going to continue before our 6 o'clock meeting, but I do want to, I know we may not get a unanimous decision on this item, so I do want to discuss one at a time. But if we're very consistent on the yes and no's on that, I'd like to take the rest of them in blank unless you've got some reason to treat each of these differently from the other. As you recall, this body of government has previously done, in all previous years, allowed the opportunity for, that miss him? Okay, it's not on my agenda.
Yeah, this is the other one you need.
10B, I thought it was just on the night's calendar. My bad. We have an ordinance authorizing the settlement in the total amount of $200,000 for any and all claims, demands, or damages against the defendants arising out of concerned Corey Perkins versus Macon-Bibb County, and appropriating $200,000 from general fund to provide funds for the payment of settlement agreement. We've also previously discussed this item in executive session. You're familiar with the facts of these items and the circumstances involved. We did add that to the calendar within a specified period of time, just didn't make it to my agenda. So at this time, I entertain a motion for approval of that settlement. Was that Tillman or Watkins? Tillman, and I had a second by Brunson, sorry.
Are the addition of organizations or outside agencies a time-sensitive thing? I fielded more than a few requests from, I guess, agencies, and I think some of them on the list, some of them are not.
There's a couple that have opted out, and the remaining ones that are eligible are these ones that we have on this agenda here today.
Say that again, I'm sorry. I kind of broke.
There's been at least 3 I know of that have opted out. It is a little time sensitive because we're coming up on an open enrollment time in a couple months, and they need to know what they do with theirs. These are ones that we have traditionally funded. Last year we had some debate, even though it was approved unanimously last year, a debate on whether or not we were allowed to do that, and legally we are allowed to do that. And number 2, that we were consistent with all of these agencies that were part of the program here. So we wanted to make sure that we had a contract that covered each and every one of them in a consistent manner so they're all treated equally. Is that correct? Looking at my attorneys to shake their head, yes or no? Okay. And it's for 1 year. So 1 year at a time. These are the ones that we're considering. If you're saying there's somebody that's not on the list that thinks that they're eligible to do this, it'll be something that we can handle at a later time, but we would like to go ahead and handle these tonight.
This is the same list from last year. The only group that's treated a little bit different is the Library Board of Trustees, and that was at their own request.
Okay.
Hey, I'm totally in support of everyone receiving. I consider it to be a benefit to the organizations. I think it's a win-win for all parties involved from what I've been able to decipher from the relationship. But I was asking, like I say, I know the community citizen advocacy was requesting, was one of them, and I don't know if naming names at this point is appropriate, but there were a few groups that were asking how could they benefit from this, and I just, if they can turn in an application or contact the county attorney's office, that'll suffice. If it's not,
I think they can contact the county attorney's office and they'll run it up the wall.
Commissioner, yeah, if you just pass it up.
okay.
Commissioner Wynn, you had concern?
Yeah, are we on A, just A? Is that correct? You know, this is the concern for all of them. For me, these are not employees of the city of Macon. I know you said that legal said we can have these people on our health plan, but it's all about risk and what risk this poses to our health plan for our true employees of the city of Macon. Does it also include not only the employees of these agencies, but their spouses and or their children? And do we know what kind of risk that's going to cause? Do we know what kind of cost it may cause in the form of additional claims, make our claims payments go up? Because I think we're pretty good on that. I know these. I have to ask questions like on Keep Macon Big Beautiful. Is there not like a pool of those kinds of agencies countrywide? There's a national organization. Do they not offer them any kind of health plan for their agencies all over the country? There's probably a lot more on here that could have some kind of a pool fund that they could go to. I know that when I was in insurance, there were pools where people of the same type of business could go in together and get a better premium on their coverage. So I'm concerned that it's not employees. We don't hire these people. We don't fire them. We don't dictate what they do. We don't know what kind of risk they bring to the table, and I'm just concerned about putting all these people on our health plan with our city employees.
I understand your concern. We had this discussion last year. I think the Macon Transit Authority had a large number of employees. They have went another route with their own, as well as Visit Macon and at least one of the other ones. I think you have to do an analysis between the pros and cons. To me, I believe the pros of having each of these folks own our insurance is a quite valuable tool to make sure that we're able to recruit not only from Macon-Bibb County, but all the authorities and agencies we deal with, the most important, qualified, competent people we can get. And I hate to lose somebody valuable as an industrial authority, which is the one we're on right now, who bring in millions and millions of dollars in investment into our community and they're paying for this coverage. Quite honestly, when we did our evaluation, many of these agencies are very small, a lot younger than our own employees, and actually lower the rates for us, and there's less risk. But we don't get into evaluating people as just simply risk, and we can't do that on certain legal quantifications. But I understand that both your argument for and against it, but I think we've had this discussion last year. We wanted to make sure everybody was treated fairly across the board as far as what they were paying, the percentages, and the availability of that. So we've made that decision for all of these, that they all meet the criteria, and we just want the commissioners either voted up or down so we can move on.
So are they paying the same percentage or same amounts that our employees pay?
They pay that much plus more because they have an administration fee that they have to pay as well, and sometimes that's a pretty decent fee that they pay because we have to administer these items.
Who administers the claims, the health claims?
Was it Anthem? Anthem.
Whoever the health insurance carrier is.
Anthem.
And our spouses, siblings and things like spouses and children allowed on the plan.
They're offered they're afforded the same opportunities that all of our employees are. They pay a slightly higher price.
Well, I just wondered if any of the other authorities had different plans to go to, like you said, Macon Transit Authority. I just wonder if they've checked that out.
I can assure you each and every one of them thought they were losing it completely last year. They all did their searches to see if there was any coverage and any coverage they could afford. And those that could provide service or pool theirs with elsewhere have gone elsewhere. Those that were left without a choice at all, a reasonable choice at all, with a substantial higher fees, are the ones that we still have on this list.
And that's why people stay around on their jobs till they're 65, because health insurance is so expensive. And this is a good example. When you have 1 and 2 and 3 people working at these agencies, I'm sure their coverage is very expensive.
That's correct.
Okay, I still have concerns about it.
I understand, and that's why I said we can vote in block. If you want to vote no in block of all these, that'd be fine.
No, I'm not going to be put on the spot that way.
What's that?
I'm not going to be put on the spot that way. To vote one down and one up, and that's not going to look good.
Okay.
Okay,
But you're going to vote. We can vote in block, and you can vote no to all of them at one time. Is that okay?
that's fine.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Wynn. Commissioner Watkins.
I don't know if it helps, but maybe 3-4 years ago, well, no, it was before COVID, we had a healthcare study committee. My healthcare cost, it fluctuated highly for a couple of years. When we formed the committee, it was a few county commissioners, members of the rank and file of the county, to look at our healthcare plans, what we were paying inside and out. And this was a question that was asked: what was the burden? But I can forward, I think I have before, but I can forward again the actual findings of that from our internal auditor. And loosely, all the organizations in total, they weren't costing us any money. Like the mayor said, they were paying their full freight, and we were in the positive as a county, as all of them as a whole. I remember if you pulled them out individually, the Visitors Bureau, and I think the mayor might have mentioned that they pulled out now, they were the only one that were in need of doing some type of true-up because of excess health costs. But even that, when you're talking about a $25 million total health care fee that we roughly pay annually, they were a few $1,000s over what they needed to pay because of, I guess, some extending things that happened. Needless to say, these programs don't cost us any money. I think the mayor was dead on when he was speaking. Most of these programs are very small offices that are made up of millennials and younger folks that are quite healthy, which is quite opposite of what you find with the rank and file of our departments. No offense, but.
Thank you, Commissioner Watkins. Commissioner Jones? Speaking of slightly younger.
You're generalizing there, Commissioner. So broad brush. I have concerns. I see the Library Board of Trustees as a governmental agency. Is that correct?
Under the legal term, yes, sir.
What does that mean, a governmental agency?
In summary, sir, well, good afternoon, commissioners. In summary, each one of these organizations have been found to either, one, was created by the government, or two, do a substantial work for the government that qualifies them. So over the last year, we had legal go through and do a research to make sure that they met either that qualification, either we created them or they do a service for us, which qualifies them to be under our legal government status. Did I say that correctly, Mike?
Yeah, and no question, they provide great service in the community. But I have concerns with the different ones that are great organizations. Macon Arts Alliance, a nonprofit. Macon Museum of Arts and Sciences, a nonprofit. Historic Macon, a nonprofit. Newtown Macon, a nonprofit. So I see where you're coming from, but it's nothing personal. They all provide great services to this community. But I just, and we had this discussion previous administration. We knew we were opening up this can of worms, and it's been open for a while. So where do we draw the line? Who do we not include that may say, well, we're providing a service to Macon too, we just happen to be a nonprofit? Where do we draw that line?
The line has been drawn that we do this yearly, and so we reevaluate, we work with them, and as the mayor alluded, we have increased their cost to us by charging the admin fee, which they have evaluated to see what works within their budgets, and this year we did lose 3 of them. And so we do know that some others are shopping around to get their own plan, so that's why we're doing this year to year. So we are dwindling down.
Data that tells us since we started this, and I'm not sure what it was, maybe 3 years ago, that there's not been any extra cost because, a young person, just like an older person, can have cancer or whatever.
Yes, sir. I can tell you that we have done a financial analysis of all these, and I think I want to be very clear and be careful not to look at any particular departments in its own, because I think you're touching into the HIPAA areas that we shouldn't get into. But I will say that's why we only do 1 year, so we can have a chance to review it again next year. Also, we gave an option for them to opt out, which they have, and it's 3 of the ones that we mentioned earlier, to get their own coverage. And we do evaluate those. And I can say what I said before, and that Commissioner Watkins affirmed. The majority of these folks that are left on here are actually lowering the cost and allowing us to provide better services and benefits to our personal employees, that you would consider personal employees, based on the fact that they're in good shape and they're a lot younger than the average employee that we have, and their bills are a lot less. Of course, in a COVID situation, it's hard to tell who's the oldest person in the room is going to get affected by COVID or something perhaps differently. But we are monitoring this on a year-to-year basis. Commissioners certainly can vote it up or down, but I think it's a better process than we've had in previous years to treat everyone fair. And those who could get better coverage or the same coverage elsewhere have chosen to do so, and we're certainly thankful about that.
So when you say we monitor it on a yearly basis, what does that mean? So we had you can't say, well, ABC.
We get an audit from each one, and we look at how much we took in, how much we expended out overall, to see if there's any kind of large number that we need to be concerned about. And then we actually we have some stop gaps on there. So if we had somebody had some unusually horrible issue that happened in their life, it may hit that gap and that top. So it helps level things out. But we look at that as a team, our team, and we evaluate that with Anthem and others to do an audit yearly to see if we're getting severely hampered financially by any one of those quasi-authorities.
You don't have the ability to terminate somebody. You can't do that.
Certainly, we can non-renew them the next year if we've got good and valid reason, and they'll come back before you again, and we would bring that to your attention if we have some anomaly. And we would have done it here, but we have not. We've actually seen better progress.
Okay. Just some concerns. I'm concerned about who all are we going to add? There are a lot of good nonprofits throughout Macon-Bibb County, and my concern is it sounds like it's sure what the requirements are, what the lines are. You're in or you're out, or we can accept you or not. It seems like a lot of discretionary ruling there, and I'm not sure that's. I'm just concerned about it.
I understand. Certainly good positive questions, and that's why we got the conversation. But I think looking for the greatest benefit for our community and not necessarily looking at one-on-one situations. Mayor Pro Tem Clark?
Yeah, I don't want to stop any conversation, so if this is just the wrong time, please, if somebody else has other comments on this, but if at the appropriate time, I'd love to move to consider items 11A through J as one vote.
Okay. I think we'll end up doing that if we can. Commissioner Wynn, do you have a follow-up question?
Yes, sir. Just about the benefits. Are the benefits the same? The coverage is the same? The deductibles the same? Everything's the same as the city of employees have. That we don't want to have anything that's different there. I'm just going to use a term that Commissioner Jones said. It's a little like I'm afraid we're going to open up a can of worms because we've already had another commissioner say someone else is asking about that. So I just worry about what we're doing here.
Yeah,
I have a concern, but I
it's
understand
consistent across the board, and they pay a higher administration fee, which is passed on by their organization, because we end up having to provide some of those services internally, and we charge them a fee for it. But it's better than they can get elsewhere, but higher than what our employees pay. But the benefit package, they select that just like we all do, and they choose their coverage, and there's a certain price that goes with each of those coverages.
Okay.
Commissioner Tillman?
I just want to say that there are hundreds of nonprofits out there, but there are not hundreds of Macon-Bibb partners. These are our partners, and so come on board. We welcome you. It's not going to cost us a whole lot, so come on board. Waiting for the other folks as well, and I support this. Thank you. Call for the question.
Thank you, Commissioner Tillman. I don't want to take a separate vote on calling for the question because I think we're already there, but I appreciate that. We do have items 11A through J. I'd like to take those in block, and right now we entertain a motion to approve those. Get a motion for approval. Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Clark, second by Commissioner Tillman. We have a motion and second. If there's no further questions, we'll take these in block. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Got a question? Jones, you have a question?
A comment, and I really, I'm not worried about being politically correct. I haven't been politically correct for 8.5 years, and yeah, you can say this is my last term, and big deal. But I'd rather vote on them one by one. But I'm going to trust what you're telling me as far as you've looked at it. I'm still concerned about who all's coming in and how big it gets. Does it have a negative impact on the people that we're obligated to provide that insurance for? So that's my concern. I'll vote for it based on your reassurance, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones. We have a motion and second. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously. Be sent to consent agenda. This meeting is hereby adjourned until 6 o'clock at the regular start of our meeting.
Okay, I'll tell him I recorded the minutes. All right, thank you. Bye-bye. She's going to listen on Facebook, and she was voting yes for everything, so she'd just like to be recorded this yes.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Macon-Bibb County Commission meeting. Today is Tuesday, August the 2nd, and the time is now 6:04. I'd like to welcome everyone here for our first meeting of the August month. And at this time, we'll call our meeting to order, and we'll also begin with our prayer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. We're pleased tonight to have Reverend Dr. William Edward Flippin, Jr., the interim pastor of Lutheran Church of the Redeemer, here with us tonight. Welcome, sir, and you may approach the microphone there.
Thank you, Mayor Miller. Let us pray. Creator, we thank you for your elected leaders. We thank you for those who you have entrusted with a monumental task of governance in a world beset by pandemic threats and titanic fears, in a country torn into screaming political factions at a time when racism firms and divides and humiliates us. Yet when we suffer these setbacks and opposition, still we do not lose heart. My prayer is that we don't get weary in well-doing, but continue to move forward together in economic and community development, safe neighborhoods and safe communities amid the perception of violence, with effective government and governance. Let this convening this evening be transparent, transformative, and triumphant. Just as you spared this great city from William Tecumseh Sherman march to sea, you have preserved Macon-Bibb County and its leaders for a purpose. So let us know that much is given, much is indeed required. So disturb us, challenge us as elected officials, as Board of Commissioners for Macon-Bibb County to redevelop this great city, to find innovative ways to reclaim abandoned and discarded communities, that they will become vibrant communities of social change, embracing justice for all. Disturb us, challenge us, Creator, to partner with our community in building stabilized neighborhoods by advocating the interests of all of our citizens that reside in diverse contexts. Disturb us, Creator, when our dreams have come true because we dream too little, when we drive safely because we sail too close to the shore. Disturb us, challenge us to dare more boldly, to venture on wider seas where storms will show the transcendent force mastery. Disturb us and challenge us, Creator, to lose sight of land and follow the vision of that we shall find the stars. We ask you to push back the horizons of our hopes and to push us in a future and strength, courage, hope, and love. In our Creator's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Reverend. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Not aware of any announcements tonight, so we'll move right on into our approval of the minutes. Item 5A is the approval of the minutes from the July 19th, 2022 pre-commission meeting and the regular meeting. Can I get a motion to approve? Motion by Commissioner Bronson, second by Commissioner Wynn. Any questions? Hearing no questions, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. Thank you. That motion carries. Next, we'll move on to presentations, and likewise, I'm not aware of any presentations. We do have one comment on public comments on agenda items, and we have one on non-agenda items. So I'll go ahead and call the one that's concerning property tax matters. That's Mr. Ralph Jordan. Mr. Jordan, if you don't mind coming up to the podium, and you'll have 5 minutes which to speak if you're still with us. Okay. We'll move right on with our new business. Not aware of any new business tonight, since we've done so much in the previous meeting today as well as last time we met. Same thing with old business. We'll move on to the consent agenda. And the consent agenda tonight includes item 10A specifically that reduces the millage rate in Macon-Bibb County from a 19.901 mills to a 17.901 mills to be levied and assessed the 2022 year, which means everyone in Macon-Bibb County will receive a final bill instead of the estimate that you received earlier this year in the mail in the next month or so. That could be paid in November or December, or at least 2 payments toward the end of the year. Also, those items will be 10A through AA. 10A through AA. So at this time, I entertain a motion for approval of the consent agenda, items 10A through AA, including the millage rate rollback. I get a motion to approve? Got a motion by Commissioner Wilder, second by Commissioner Wynn. Any questions regarding those items? Hearing no questions, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries and the consent agenda passes unanimously. We do have one item of non-agenda item that I'd like to bring, and that non-agenda item conversation will be from Mr. C.R. Benson. Mr. Benson, thank you for being with us tonight. I understand that you want to speak in regards to Tobesofsky and things related to Tobesofsky, including airboats, et cetera. So if you don't mind coming up to that podium, we'll give you opportunity to speak. We'll give you 5 minutes to talk, sir.
Okay. Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to be here. I need a little help. Got a couple of problems out at Tobesofsky. I've lived out there for 37 years, but I want to say thank you to Donald Bracewell, and there's a gentleman by the name of Michael Johnson who's got a Florida phone that's helped me a lot. They have made some boats that's making a lot of noise and a lot of music with filthy language on it. They've stopped the boat with blue lights and spotlights, so they've helped me during the last year. But last night about 1:15, I was awakened with 4 boats that had big headlights that looked like they were on Ford 250 trucks shining in the front yard. And a couple of guys got out with flashlights next door. I live with as a vacant lot out by the hatches on Waterway Court. And they were yelling and carrying on over there. So I went out in the yard and tried to run them off. And, of course, you can't call Tobesofsky after 9 o'clock at night. There's no rangers out there. So what I want to talk about is lights, the loud music, the noise is getting real prevalent. I've been out there for a long time, and it used to be quiet. But Tobesofsky needs some resources, perhaps a boat or a ranger on call. I know you don't have the resources or the money to have somebody out there 24 hours a day to just help me with a little bit of noise and some of the neighbors. I'm probably the only one that complained. The last time I came to the commission meeting, Virgil Watkins over here, he didn't even remember me, but they had an airplane landing out there, and that was at least dangerous, with kids on floats and skiers, and he helped me get through the county commission and to get that airplane out of there, because that's kind of foolish to have a little small lake like that with airplanes landing in and out, but that actually happened, and I appreciate it. The sheriff can't help. The sheriff can't drive down to the water. He can't get on the water. If you call the sheriff in the middle of the night, they said they'll send somebody out, and maybe they'll have time, but with all the activity and the shortage they have, if they get out there, they can't do anything. So it's not a sheriff thing; it's a Tobesofsky thing. I appreciate the time, but if you could help me get some of the noise down, the people out at night shining lights. They take spotlights and shine up in the front yard. And 1 o'clock in the morning, I was 77 last month. Old guys don't like to be awakened in the middle of the night. My wife's in the truck with my dog now. I came from the farm, so she couldn't come in, but she don't go back to sleep. So if you can help me with that, I really appreciate it. And if you could get, help those guys at Tobesofsky. I think they're doing all they can do, but they don't have shift 24 hours a day, and then I don't call for Rick Benson to call them and come up there and help. But if you'd consider that, I'd certainly appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for being here tonight. We'll certainly pass those along, and I agree. Director Bracewell's doing an excellent job out there, and I'll let you know just in advance that this commission considers changing some rules on that, and we have our attorney cooperating with state officials on that. A lot of the things that people had requested to be done are preempted by state law, so we're walking through that process to see what we can present to commissioners on what can be done to make sure that the lake there is safe for everyone and what we're allowed to do on the local level. But I'll certainly address those issues. I think we have someone on call out there, but I'll address those issues myself with the director out there, and I'll be in communication with your commissioner, who's Mr. Wilder, out there as well, to see if we can answer your questions for you and move that along.
Can I add one more thing?
Yes, sir.
We got an airboat out there, and when the airboat goes down, if you're out on the deck grilling, it rattles the windows and hurts your teeth. I don't think we need airboats on Tobesaki. You know, that's what's for the swamps and the rivers and other places. And it's an airplane engine. If you can imagine an engine racing up and down, back and forth, it's not only dangerous, it's just foolish to have that. But I was told there's no ordinance and nothing they could do about it when I called the office at Tobesaki. Can you help with that also, sir?
It's certainly something we'll ask our attorneys to look at. Some things are preempted by the state, which means we have absolutely no control locally. And maybe some kind of exception or waiver that we can have, but that's part of the conversation.
Noise ordinance, perhaps?
All that's part of the conversation, sir. So thank you for being here today, and we'll certainly follow up on that. That is all the non-agenda items I have. I see someone raising their hand. I assume you want to address the commission about a particular issue? Yes. Okay, you can come forward and please identify yourself. If you just state your name and what issue you want to speak on, and then we'll give you 3 minutes for a conversation.
My name is Donna Howard. Thank you for my 3 minutes. I have 2 things I want to talk with you about. One is about the property taxes and how you guys estimate what property taxes should be, being that you haven't seen the properties, especially when some of the properties are the tax sale properties that y'all sold at auction. My second thing is about Tobesaki. They need some divers, some guards, swimming guards. They need a lot of stuff because there's too many people dying out there. They need a whole lot of floats with jackets for people to wear. They need those things to be on the boat, which you're supposed to throw out, and for people that has fallen off the boats. We are losing too many people drowning out here at Tobesaki, and it needs to be done something about that. Let's address all of this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here tonight. Commissioners, that concludes the business that we have here tonight regarding this. It is a time for personal privilege tonight, so if any commissioners have any point of personal privileges, there's no need to go into executive session. I have been asked to provide an update on the convenience centers for your knowledge. We sent an email to a few folks that had questions. The convenience center that we have downtown on 11th Street is doing wonderful. It is open 7 days a week, and it's getting used a lot. We've only had a couple instances during weather that we had to close that for a short period of time. We have 2 more that are scheduled to be open in the very near future. The next one is going to be between Fulton Mill Road, and the third one is going to be off of Nymphindale Drive, which is over off of Montpelier. Unfortunately, like all things are today, we have run into some difficulties with supply and labor. We have a vendor that is working on that project. We do expect for it to move forward. I can't give you an exact time on when that's going to open up. The latest conversation we had is an additional 60 days, other than what we told you 60 days a couple of weeks ago. We do expect a structure to be either built or delivered on that property in the next week. But we do have a labor shortage. We do have a supply shortage, and so far no funds have been expended to this particular company. But I know our county manager has been in contact with those that are doing the convenience center on a weekly basis, and we're going to continue to follow back up. But we're really at the mercy of the vendors on those issues. The Nymphindale property, we're doing a lot of that work ourselves to save taxpayer dollars and to clear that property out, and we'll be ordering the things from that, and we expect that to be online shortly after the Fulton Mill Road or at the same time. As you remember, when we did the first convenience center that we had downtown, we expected 6 to 9 months. It ended up taking just over a year because of delay shortage on supplies, fencing, cans, concrete, you name it. So we continue to have struggles like everyone else, but I do want you to know that it's on the forefront. We look forward to opening that up and having a ribbon cutting in the very near future on both of those locations, and we're working just as hard as we can. Unfortunately, I think we've got a lot of materials that are sitting out there in the ocean waiting to be delivered, and some people waiting to apply for jobs to do the work, and we're going to continue to monitor that. Anyone else like to make any comments for point of personal privilege? Commissioners? Anybody? Okay. Commissioner Watkins?
And did you say we were going? Is the executive session on amphitheater?
I didn't say anything about no executive session.
Oh, could you provide? I noticed we got tractors and stuff moving at the amphitheater site. Could you provide us with a brief update on where we at there?
Sure. We have some tractors at the amphitheater moving concrete.
At some point, will we be receiving, a document that shows us what is being built?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
When would that be? Yes, it's fine, but
we're waiting on the final charrettes to come from TVS and from Piedmont. We expect to have those August the 22nd. The reason we are going ahead and move some concrete out there for a couple of reasons. Number one, instead of having to purchase dirt for the landfill to close at, we knew that we had that concrete that had to be moved there, and it will help us in our closure process there at the landfill, so we've been doing that. We're also working with Georgia Power and Atlanta Gas Light to make sure that all the utilities are being moved. We believe a lot of the steel will be delivered next February or March for the project, but all items are already going to start to be developed in. But our team, including Alex Morrison and all the architects involved, have been meeting on a weekly basis every Friday, and they're getting all the final pricing and everything to present. There's some things that were based on remarks made by the public as well as the term and by the newly associated vendor for the concessions and things to be added and tweaked, as well as the lighting and the sound design. There's been a couple of small tweaks made to that, but we expect, I think August the 22nd was the last date that I received, that we would have everything contemplated towards so we can release that information to the commissioners on the final design and give you the best estimate we can on when supplies will be delivered and when more productive work will be done out there.
Okay, so that was a good bit of information. I gathered the final design has not been finalized?
Well, it's been finalized, but we haven't received all the information because they're still doing what architects do and designers do.
And the work that I'm visually seeing at the site is not actually construction, it's
Oh, it's
landfill?
definitely construction. We have to clear that concrete out to build the foundation, and they've been doing that so we can get ahead of the curve on moving the utilities, and we've been working hand in hand with the Georgia Power and Atlanta Gas Light to do that, and we have a schedule for those. So this work was necessary to do, and we didn't want to just sit back and have nothing done over there, but at the same time, we saw the opportunity to save the county money by using the concrete over there to fill in some places that we need to at the landfill. And it would have to be moved anyway based on the design and the curtilage of the property.
So, to local contractors that are interested in being involved in the project from the construction, have they missed their window, or what is the process for?
They would need to contact Piedmont, who's in charge of the construction. I don't think they missed their window, but I know that 90% of all the folks they've communicated with so far have all been local contractors, whether that's concrete work, fence work, installation, laborers, etc. So.
Okay.
But Piedmont would be the person to contact regarding that.
If I'm understanding, you said August 22nd we will have finalized.
That's the date I've been provided, yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Jones, you have
Question for you or Dr. Moffitt. What are the hours of the convenience center currently? You said 7 days a week.
8 to 4, 8 to 4:30. 8:30 to 4:30. I get them confused.
8 to 4, but the guys don't leave till about 4:30. So we close at 4.
8 o'clock to 4 o'clock Monday through
Saturday and Sunday too?
That's
Yes.
correct.
Now,
8 to 4 p.
now, full disclosure, when the other 3 come online, we will be looking at modifying hours to make sure they all operate at times that is best serve the community, because we have limited manpower centers. So
That's just the initial convenience center there. That's the only
That's
one
correct.
that's open right now.
Correct.
Right?
7 days a week, and all of them will be open at some time on the weekend. They may not have the exact same hours that the downtown location has because it's the biggest one. Commissioner Bronson?
Hey, just to kind of, I guess, piggyback off of Commissioner Watkins here. When we talk about local companies, have we identified, just out of curiosity, have we identified any minority or small minority businesses or contractors that we have coming in? Have we had any minority groups come in basically to jump in on this project?
As part of the bid process that went through with Piedmont, they agreed to use a certain amount of minority businesses and local contractors in there, and we're going to hold them to the contract. Mr. Morrison is working on that. We don't determine who they hire, but they certainly had an open door policy with Sharice Stevens and our department to furnish any labor that we can do for them. Of course, they have their own team involved as well, but they're 100% responsible for their contractors, and certainly local contractors and minority contractors are a part of it.
So you mentioned the percentage. What was it? Do we know the percentage of that for that project?
Mr. Morrison, you remember?
Oh, so it was the standard procurement procedure,
Okay.
which is, I believe it's a 20% minimum participation. But we communicated to Piedmont that we expect it to be far in excess of that.
Okay.
And they're well aware of that. They're familiar with Macon-Bibb County processes and what we expect. And the final the final contractor list wouldn't be until after that date that the mayor said, when the final construction actually begins and the bids are confirmed.
Okay, so they still, and forgive me, have we already bypassed or have we already missed that deadline? If a company, I know you said reach out to Piedmont, but do we have a deadline that they need to reach out to Piedmont in order to get?
Yeah, if they would need to immediately if they expect, but because when we did the procurement process, we handed that process over to them, and as the mayor said, we don't get to tell them who they select as
Gotcha.
subs. Otherwise, we would be colluding.
Let's not do that.
Thank you, Commissioner Bronson. Commissioner Mayor Pro Tem Clark.
Just want to briefly thank everybody and congratulate everybody for a successful Bragg Jam weekend. It looked like it went off without a hitch. And thank y'all for everybody, the artists and the vendors, and thank y'all for all you do annually for Macon-Bibb County, and welcome back.
Thank you. Commissioner Bronson, you have something further?
Just wanted to also say to the incoming class for this school year, to the students that are out there, good luck with school. Stay focused, and we support you guys.
Thank you. Well, if there's no other business that brings us here today except for Dr. Moffitt.
Public relations is 8:30 to 4. That is the posted times, 8:30 to 4. So make sure we get that correct.
Thank you. 8:34. This meeting is hereby adjourned.